It isn't just me that feels like these volumes are coming on faster and faster, right? Well, like it or not, we have another Archetype rematch volume to tackle, and it's volume 19. We're almost up for volume 20. Will that be the magic number volume that will finally bring me the oh so beloved Fortune Lady support? Well, here's hoping, but we'll just have to wait and see. We're starting this volume off with some more Blue Eyes support, which is quite a mixed bag considering how fantastic the previous one was. And by mixed bag I mean one half continues the legacy of the previous support wave, while the other half is more akin to the support wave we've been used to for over 2 decades at this point. So let us start off with Kaiser Seahorse, and it's being mentioned only as a segue to his retrain because this is Blue Eyes support as much as Double Costin is Dark Magician or Red Eyes support. So moving along, we have Neo Kaiser Seahorse. And without a doubt, this is one of the best archetypal tuners, especially for Blue Eyes, and it also makes summoning Neo Spirit Dragon with its intended summoning condition possible. So obviously you run as many of these as you can. Then we have Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Behold, Striker Dragon's mentally defected cousin. Sorry for the phone ringing. Damn it, I should have lowered its volume, but anyway, this is, like I said, Striker Dragon's mentally defected cousin, and you run it only in some very questionable Guard Dragon variants. Indigo Eyes Silver Dragon is one of their newest boss monster, which is an exceased monster of all things. And it's not awful or anything, its summon effect is the best thing about it by far, but the normal monster reliance cripples it just a smidgen too much. Run 1 or 2 if you feel like it. Then we have their last support card, Majesty with Dragons of White. They had the right idea with this effect, and especially the first effect. The problem, of course, is the setup. However, the second effect makes up for it as a miracle fusion for rituals, which is highly appreciated, but considering that you can only summon any monster as long as you use the original Blue Eyes brick material, it's nowhere near as versatile as its fusion counterpart, but it's fine enough. And that was the Red Eyes output. Like I said, a bit been there, done that, and a bit in the right direction as the previous support has been taking its support. Anyway, yeah, next up we have Speedroids with another hefty bunch of new support cards. We start off with one of their first 2 Pendulum monsters, Speedroid Clackernal. Not quite sure where they were going with this one. The Pendulum effect already requires setup and synergizes with only 1 other card, and both monster effects feel like a tad out of date for this day and age. Next up we have Speedroid Wing Synchron, which suspiciously looks like Metal Sonic. Again, I am quite bewildered with this one. This thing's sole purpose is to bring out Clearwing Synchro Dragon, as indicated by the artwork again, but the key thing here is that Speedroids have an obscene amount of ways to bring out any level 7 and beyond, and the monster's effect is a highly cryptic Foolish Burial, good Foolish Burial goods, not the OG Foolish Burial, for the archetypal back row only, so run only if you feel like it. Next up we have their first new synchro, High Speedroid Glider 2. In comparison to the main deck monsters, this guy is pretty good, as it helps out in summoning out archetypal Axel synchros, even though it would be more sensible if it was reversed, like a level 7 tuner reviving a level 5 or lower. But we have this at least, so I can't complain too much. The point of the level raise for the opponent is puzzling to say the least, but at least it fits the Arc 5 gimmick of level 5 or higher. And now for the bossiest of their boss monsters, we have Crystal Clear Wing Over Synchro Dragon, King of all calamities. Yeah, anyway, for this summoning condition, you'd expect a twice per turn Omni Negate at least, but instead, you get a slightly better Crystal Wing, which floats into a Clear Wing upon leaving the field. Not bad, but could be better. Then we have their final card, Speedroid Clearwing Wonder. The first effect makes this card a decent side deck option, while the second effect only serves to reset your soft once per turns, which is such a niche use that I am questioning why they even bothered, especially in this day and age where most of the effects are hard once per turn, so yeah, I'm not quite grasping it, you know. Next up we have Gem Knights, who got a very healthy serving of new support. Starting of course with Gem Knight Neperim. This is a textbook example of a near perfect starter. It does just about anything a Gem Knight should do, even halving the effect damage to the opponent because they still have Vietnam flashbacks over the FTK. If its revival effect triggered on the field as well, it would be a perfect 20 out of 10. I can just guarantee you that. Next up we have Gem Knight Hollow Core. This is an extender, and extenders aren't usually what Gem Knights are after particularly, but it could be a potential graveyard setup, so that kind of works. The second effect would be much better appreciated on an actual extra deck monster, so you run one or two of these. Next up we have the retrain of Master Diamond, Gem Knight Master Diamond Dispersion. My goodness, if this thing was a thing during the peak of Brilliant Fusion's reign, Gem Knights would have had 100% representation of any event. It's still great, but you know, not as lethal as it could have been. And the last card we have is Gem Knight Dispersion, the newest bread and butter of the Gem Knight strategy, and something you run at 3 at all times. Nothing much else to say here. Another archetype which got a healthy lineup worth of support are Gladiator Beasts. We're starting off, of course, with Gladiator Beast Magister. Simple and effective starter, nothing much else to say here, so we move on to Test Bear, which I swear to God I read as Tear Bear the first time I saw it, which would be a very Happy Tree Friends parody of the Care Bears, if I'm being honest. I would love to see that though. But anyway, it's a bit of an unconventional extender, but very in line with the archetype's playstyle. The only problem is that it's not the most searchable monster due to its name, like all other test subjects in this archetype. Next up we have their newest boss monster, Gladiator Beast Claudius. And yeah, isn't it quite riveting to see the very first Meta Menace archetype who lived and died by the battle phase now had to have effects like double battle phase in order to keep up with Tenpais who could OTK in one single battle phase? Yeah, again, yeah, it's a bit of a reality check on that front, but it's still a fantastic card, mind you. But it is still interesting to see how the tides have turned, you know. Next up we have their newest Link 2 monster, Gladiator Beast Darius. It's alright, a typical Link 2 extender you'd see for an archetype such as this. Better than Dragos's, that's for sure. And then we have Flavius, Arena of the Gladiator Beast, which is their last card and their newest field spell. And it's not gonna wrap any formats around it, but this is a phenomenal piece of support to give Gladiator Beasts a fighting chance in this rapidly evolving meta. Definitely run 3. Next up we have some new hero support cards. To be more precise, new evil heroes who have entered the scene, starting with Evil Hero Toxic Bubble. And yeah, wow, it only took them 19 years to fix Bubble Man's draw 2 effect so that it actually synergizes with the archetype. Nothing much else to say here. It's a Gillosaurus for evil heroes that draws you 2 cards. Run 3 at all times and never run any less than that. Then we have an Evil Hero Doom Prison, which is of course an evil hero version of Prisma. Anyway, it's a close enough replica of Prisma. Replica of a replica, if you will. I still prefer the OG Prisma because of the graveyard setup, despite the fact of a potential risk of getting ashed. Still, it's not bad at all. Next up we have Evil Hero Infernal Rider. Another fine array of abilities, even though its summon effect would be much better if it could also fetch Dark Calling. Run any number of these. Next up we have their first fusion monster, Evil Hero Inferno Wing Infernal Backlash. I would call this thing a great first extra deck summon for Evil Heroes if it wasn't for the fact that you need those dogshit vanilla monsters to get it out. Thankfully though we have substitutes to some degree to mitigate this, so again, caution with the ratios on this one. Next up we have Evil Hero Dark Knight. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't use Bubble Man as like a fusion material for this one, considering Bubble Man is a typical parody of Batman. But anyway, it's fine. It's a bit undercooked due to how low its stats are, but it's serviceable nonetheless. And their last fusion, for now at least, is Evil Hero Neos Lord. The control exchange effect on this one can potentially be very devastating, considering it's permanent and acts as interruption, and definitely worth running. So yeah, we finally get another Neos variant if we've ever needed one of those in a long time. Next up we have Dark Contact, which is, yeah, ramming in all those Neos references and connections there. And yeah, I'm not gonna mince words here, you run 3 of these at all times. It sucks as that it doesn't flat out replace the OG Dark Fusion because of the name, but it's not the end of the world. And the last card that Evil Heroes got, oh no, it's the semi-final card, sorry. Evil Assault is another 3 of, not much else to say here, it's just pretty good stuff, consistency booster, nothing much else to say here. And now this is the final card, Dark Supremacy, a normal trap card, and yeah, getting a lot of mileage out of the first effect is a hypothetical construct at best, and the second effect is lackluster at best. But yeah, you run only if you feel like it, because you technically can get some mileage out of this one, so yeah. Now we have an archetype with a 1-card wonder. We have the Charmers, who've gotten another 1-card worth of support. Area the Water Channeler. I've already covered this effect for the previous Channeler, so I won't waste any more of your time here, since it's the exact same thing but for water monsters. So now we can move on to something that caught me completely off guard when I saw the announcement. New Arcana Force support, starting with Arcana Force 5 the Hierophant. As a Persona fan, I am very tickled by now. Anyway, yeah, this is a bit of a confusing one, considering that the anime-only trap card, the Emperor's Staff, is considered to be the representation of the Hierophant Arcana in, you know, the lore-wise, but here we are. Anyway, Hierophant is pretty dang good. Fortune finally smiles upon this archetype, seeing how this is a fantastic starter and a support card in general. It's a blessing in the sky that all of the new Arcana Force monsters are now following the example of Temperance, where they have effects regardless of the coin toss, and not to mention that the Tails effect isn't half bad because of a certain other card we'll talk about soon. Even Chariot's Tails effect is actually good. Let that sink in. Next up we have the other main deck monster that you received, Arcana Force 19, the Sun. And yeah, this is another fantastic piece of support which shows off the versatility of the archetype it could have had initially. Definitely run 2 or 3 of these. And the reason why the Arcana Force monsters on the opponent's field could potentially be good nowadays is because of their new boss monster, Arcana Force EX, the Chaos Ruler, which is a fusion monster, surprisingly not a fusion of the Light Ruler and the Dark Ruler, but instead 3 of Arcana Force monsters with different names. And you can special summon it from your extra deck by sending the above cards from either field to the graveyard, and oh, yeah, it can definitely be something to look forward to. Yeah, it's just mind-blowingly good. And yeah, nothing much else to see. That's a boss monster, like I tell you. It's just pure nonsense down to the fact that it even works if you keep getting unlucky coin tosses. It's just the definitive boss monster for the archetype in the truest sense of the word. So yeah, but wait, we're still not done. We still have 2 spell cards to cover. First one being Arcana Spread. Once more, an absolute godsend for the archetype and a 3-off staple without a doubt. And the last card is the continuous spell, the Wave of Light. It's a double search for the price of a discard, which is usually a sign that the archetype was basically barely salvageable from the start, which is definitely true here, so we'll see if it ends up helping them catch up with the meta race. I'm hoping they do, because again, despite its many flaws, this is still one of my most beloved decks of all time, so I'm very happy to see it succeed every once in a while. Next up we have the Magistus archetype, which I forgot to clearly mark on my script. I labeled them as part of Arcana Force support, which is totally not true. Anyway, they only received 2 new cards worth of support, the first one being the level 4 monster Spoon, the Seal of Magistus. The name is fitting, seeing how it literally spoon feeds you to the winning strategy of this deck all by itself. Run 3, run 5 if you could, and if the opponent is unlucky enough to not notice. And the other card that Magistus have got is the Magistus Chorozo, level 4 fusion monster. And yeah, the biggest fault here is that it's not an instant fusion target. As it is now, it's a fine addition to the archetype, but nothing too amazing, seeing how the entity summoning condition doesn't help either, due to the, again, lack of being proper instant fusion material. Alright, so next archetype that got some support is, okay, Armed Dragons, but the way they got their support is, it's Ojamarific, because they've tied yet another archetype to this whole collective clustery mess of cards. You'll see soon enough, but first we have to talk about the Knight Armed Dragon, the Armored Knight Dragon. Thank you, TCG, for this wonderful name. Anyway, as far as Armed Dragon support goes, this might seem absurdly confusing, seeing how it has absolutely nothing to do with the Armed Dragon playstyle besides the special summon effect. And yeah, like I said, this guy's existence ties the Armed Dragons to the legendary Light and Darkness Dragon and its new support. Yep, we're going to do through the manga loophole once again, since Light and Darkness Dragon is being brought up. So here we go. Let's start off this support wave, where we're properly being introduced to this concept with Light and Dragon. Back in the day, it was weird to see this GX manga card to be adapted into a synchro monster of all things, along with its dark counterpart. However, it got a retrain in its support wave, so making it completely obsolete, which stings even more considering that it was far less used and played than its dark counterpart. The retrain in question being Light and Sublimation Dragon. It has the exact same effect as the OG Light and Dragon, but it's triggered by the opponent, and it also has a nifty summoning condition along with a hard once per turn contact fusion effect. Run 3 at all times. Next up we have Dark End Dragon, and unlike its Light counterpart, Dark End was a meta threat back in its heyday, and of course he also got a retrain in the form of Dark End Evaporation Dragon. Same deal as the Light End retrain, same summoning condition, contact fusion effect, and the effect of the OG Dark End, but this time it's limited to attack position monsters and it destroys them instead of sending them to the graveyard. Still a 3-off though, even though its removal effect is much weaker than its original effect. So yeah, anyway, now that the stage has been properly set, we move on to the legend himself. Give it up for the legendary Light and Darkness Dragon. Oh my god, I love this card so much. Yeah, I have a very soft spot for this card, and yeah, I'm not gonna... What else can I say about this legend? Its inability to be special summoned is its biggest weakness nowadays, even more so than the fact that the Omni Negates are mandatory. Shocking, I know. I find the lack of special summoning to be more of a problem than, you know, the special summon prevention. And I'm still hoping for a card that could make him easier to work with or cheat him out of the deck or hand or graveyard. But like the others, he also got a retrain. But before we move on to that, well, let's go on to Mat. Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce this. It's either Mat or Mat. I have no idea. This is also technically Kuribo support, seeing how it was in the manga. It was a fusion of Winged Kuribo and the Light and Darkness Dragon, hence I'm bringing it up here. And I haven't covered it in the Kuribo support video because it's probably for the better, because the less I say about this piece of shit, the better. I'm just acknowledging its existence, but don't you ever run this thing, because you will get nowhere fast. With that out of the way, let's cover the ever so elusive retrain of Light and Darkness Dragon, the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which is a fusion monster, which actually makes a lot more sense than the OG dragon being a main deck monster, seeing how it would have made a lot more sense, seeing how Light and Dark and dragons basically fuse into Light and Darkness Dragon. So yeah, the fusion monster kinda makes sense. Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, so yeah, it's everything that was great about the OG Light and Darkness Dragon, a well-deserved retrain that is much easier to work with the cost of being slightly less effective in negating stuff due to having one less negate on its own, due to it consuming 1,000 life points per negate instead of 500. But it has more attack baseline to make up for it, so yeah. Anyway, absolutely run this guy if you can afford it, even outside of its designated decks. We have some more back row to cover, starting with Dragon's Light and Darkness, a phenomenal piece of support for the Light and Darkness playstyle that aims to fill out as many blind spots in the deck as possible, so definitely max out on it. Now we have these two cards, the first one being Shadow's Light, and the other one we'll get to later. These are more indirect support cards, but still phenomenal in any deck utilizing Light and Dark monsters. The other being Duality, which is again same thing as the last cards and even better in some ways due to also being a quick effect. So yeah, this was a really good support wave, even though tying it to the Armed Dragons made absolutely no sense, because, you know, Armed Dragons are the anime continuity and this is the manga continuity, two completely different things. But anyway, now we have another huge chunk of support with the new Atlanteans and Mermails to be precise, which is evident with the Abyss Shrine, the Atlantean Spirit, which is always also treated as a Mermail card. And yeah, it's been a long time coming, but Konami finally officially merged Mermails and Atlanteans into Merlantians. I bet all the people out there are celebrating and playing the deck even more. On its own, this card is okay-ish and the level 7 gimmick plays into the sport, both old and new, but the fact that it openly interacts with both Mermails and Atlanteans is absolutely sublime and opens up the doors for numerous combos to come, and yeah, definitely run 3 of these at all times. Next up we have Mermail Shadow Bodyguards. Same thing, they're also treated as Atlanteans since they have Mermail in the name, and like the previous card, the level 7 focus is in full effect here and it's just as versatile as well. Then we have Retrain, which I didn't quite get at first and I still don't get it. We have Poseidra, the Rumbling Atlantean, and for a semi-boss monster, this one is kind of meh in comparison to the cards before it, but it's still far from the worst one out there, so run any number of these if you feel like it, mainly because the Xyz version of this card is actually quite good. Now, speaking of Xyz monsters, we first have to cover Abyss Strike, the Atlantean Spirit. This is the reason why the first 2 main deck monsters were banking on level 7s, but this thing is still a stepping stone though for something a bit bigger. that being Poseidra Abyss, the Atlantean dragon deity. And it's not exactly as accessible as Mistworm or Trishula back in its heyday, but in the vacuum of its archetype, it's a game ender if used right, and the floating is also pretty nifty every now and then, and absolutely run this guy. It's basically a better Abysgaios at this point, which was a menace before that this thing came out. And yeah, how the tides have changed. Pun absolutely intended. Next up we have Neptabyss, the Royal Mermail, which is our final monster for this batch of support. And you only run this guy if you feel like running the archetypal equip spells for the sake of experimentation, but otherwise it might be better to sleep on this guy. And the last card is one of their newest equip spells, Abyss Sting of Triana. And yeah, pretty much the only equip spell of theirs worth running if you feel like it, seeing how the first and only good effect is not even once per turn, so you can loop it if you're lucky enough. And the last card they have is Abyss Team, a normal trap, and this is again the third card in this whole video to have this sort of condition, and while it also requires setup, this deck is the easiest one to achieve said setup, and it's also searchable with Abyss Strike, so run any number of these. Okay, so here we have our second one-card wonder, which is surprisingly little for how many of them we used to have previously in the show, with the single new Shark support card, that being Jet Shark. Simple extender and graveyard setup, and it also searches from the graveyard, so yeah, run any number of these. And we are finishing off with two archetypes that got two new support cards. First one being the polymerization / fusion archetype with the double fusion, the anime adaptation some of you were probably really waiting for. And yeah, it's as simple as it gets. For the price of 500 life points, you get to apply Poly's effect twice in a row. It's worth running in any deck that frequently finds itself in a situation where this kind of effect is possible. And the other card they receive is Heavy Polymerization. Provided you have life points to spare, this thing can summon out just about anything you might need instantly. This also includes mimicking Astrograph Sorcerer's anime effect to some extent to bring out Zark, and I absolutely love it. Because of that, I already bought the card for my casual Zark deck because of it, because I'm a sucker for it. And then we have the final two cards worth of support for the final archetype of today, that being the Metal Morph archetype, and we start off with Metal Flame Swordsman, who is also kind of a part of this archetype right now. And searches of your main cards are always nice to see, especially when they work exactly like you expect them to in certain decks, and this one is no exception. His on-field effect is absolutely hilarious if you manage to give bills of the Diabolic Dragons to your opponent, just like with Red Eye's Flare Metal Dragon, and then watch him crash and burn at a single effect activation. Love it. I can't say the same though about the final card, Flame Metal Morph. It's the max Metal Morph which is the basis of the whole archetype, with a once per turn destruction prevention, which is worse than the card that it's based on, and the pool of monsters it can target and summon is lesser than the card is based on. Just ignore this one. Alright, and that does it for volume 19. I'm highly curious as to whether I'll be able to film volume 20 by the time 2024 ends, or is this the final archetype rematch of 2024? I only have two cards in the folder for volume 20 already and primed to be talked about at some point, but we'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, if Santa is listening, or Konami Santa Claus, there we go, that's a segue I wanted. Please do note that I would really like some new Fortune Lady support by the time I'm back with volume XX. Yeah, literally, because XX it could either be the very next volume or any volume after that. Well, better late than never, as I always like to say. But anyway, stay tuned for tomorrow where I'll be returning to Let's Play that I haven't, that I finished a very long time ago. Well, not as long time ago, but it has been quite some time since I played this game. And yeah, considering the date of the recording of this video, or the upload date of the video, whichever comes first, some of you will very likely immediately know what that game is, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And then after that Let's Play is done, I'm still debating with myself whether I should put my next Let's Play that I'm planning immediately after it, or should I wait till my winter holidays starts and then I have some free time off work to get ready to do that Let's Play as well. But who knows? I'll see all to that later. And I keep getting tongue-tied, so I should probably end this right now. So thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Have yourselves a great day, and I will see you all next time.